Good morning and welcome to Deep Space Nine Reactions. I am Fred. If you are new to the channel, I'm glad that you found us. If you are a returning viewer, I'm glad that you're back. We are in the early days of season one of Deep Space Nine at the time of this recording. The episode that I will be rewatching, doing my usual ongoing commentary, reaction, pulling things from memory, uh, gimmicks that if you don't know how I do my presentation by now, basically I watch the episode start to finish and I give my running commentary on stuff. But because I am a Star Trek fan and I was quite literally a kid when Deep Space Nine premiered, and it's my all-time favorite series. I do have a lot of like knowledge and trivia, and I do remember things quite well when it comes to most things Star Trek, especially from stuff in the 90s into the early 2000s with Enterprise. So I get to make references and stuff. So you will hear me pull stuff or make connections to things that won't talk about stuff that will happen later and stuff in relation to the episode in question here. I don't do any cuts. Everything is uncut as presented. So if I say something incredibly stupid, I normally will catch myself on it. But yeah, matter of fact, you don't even see the episode itself, at least in full detail, because we do the composite blur and we throw this on top of it. Um, just primarily to make sure the fine folks at CBS, Paramount, Viacom, whatever the hell they're calling it these days, does not do something stupid, because essentially this is a long form podcast in a way when you really think about it, because this is going to end up being like an hour long, or close to it, not just because of my tendency to ramble at the beginning here, but because at the very end and stuff uh that happens. So it's a way of having a conversation. And it's like, how can I can have a conversation with myself talking about Star Trek while talking to you? So essentially, makes you wonder why I just decided to call this reaction. Like, because it's not really a full reaction. No, it is to various degrees. Um, Now, what do I remember about the episode in question for today? A Man Alone. What do I remember about it? Very it is the episode where it's primarily focused on Odo. There is a murder mystery that involves a criminal who comes onto the station. Odo recognizes, he tells him to get off the station. That criminal ends up dead, and but the dude is looking to frame Odo by killing his own clone. And killing your own clone is murder. So with that said, that means William Riker from, if we go back to the season two, yeah, season two of the Next Generation, that means Riker should be doing like 25 to life for killing his own clone in the episode Up the Long Ladder. Yes. Other things I remember about this episode. I believe this is the episode where Nog and Jake formally meet and become fast friends. And it's the episode that also introduces Keiko and Molly to the Deep Space Nine reoccurring cast to flesh things out with O'Brien. And also like, what will Keiko end up doing on the station? And what she ends up doing is becoming a school teacher. But we'll talk more about that as we get into the episode in and of itself. So let's get into it here. Baby. You know what? I'm gonna say this right now. I prefer wired headsets and everything, but Logitech one of these days is gonna make a freaking cable for a headset that does not get easily tangled. One of these days they will. However, today is not that day. It's Dex and her floating bubble and early day Bashir. And Jadzia is right. There are ways to recognize someone not just by sight, but how they sound and footsteps if you have good enough hearing. But early days Bashir, where he is such a blank slate that he is crushing hard and simping hard for Jadzia, and where he interrupts and talks nonstop, which is I know ironically, but in the case of Bashir, um, he does he comes across a bit smarmy, as slimy to a degree, in essence, because there's really nothing to his character, and there will not be really anything of substance to his character um, until like season 5. There, or no, I think that no, he has moments early on, but it's very few and far between. Yes, and Jadzia is trying to tell him to focus his mind, clear his head, and to focus on the task at hand. And so, and what he's going to do, and his bubble is quite literally going to burst. It it is amazing. This early on, they have Jadzia busting Bashir's balls over that. And but again, the thing with Bashir so early on is like he has this forlorn look. It's like, why? Why do you have this forlorn look, Doctor? You only have known Jadzia for a few weeks at the timing of, if you're going by the timing of the events of the episodes. And she basically says when he walks in on her uninvited, he is saying that that they need to have a talk about how the Trill have relationships and stuff, and I already know this offhand because it's discussed much later on in an episode where one of Dax's past loves comes around, and is that the Trill, because the slug itself goes from person to person. The person is like they got to have like a real like detach themselves. Like you don't want to have like a continuous relationship, like it's forbidden to a large degree. So any relationship that Dax would form at this point in time with Bashir would not be possible to continue if something was to happen to her and the symbiote was transferred to someone else. They actually do a fair job touching on it, especially with how unprepared Ezri is in season 7 for inheriting the Dax symbiote. With her conflicted feelings towards Worf, but eventually ending up with Bashir by the end of season 7 and the series finale. But at this point in time, Bashir is not going to hear that. Matter of fact, he interrupts her. It's like, oh, yes, let's discuss this over dinner and such. Where it's like he's he's quite literally the child in the room, more childish than say Jake. A man alone. Welcome to Quarks. Get yourself a Sluggo Cola. Business is always good. And it's kind of weird with this episode. They put the subtitles at the top of the screen. And Quark is looking to sell the new frontier to everyone in sight. And there you go. There's Keiko arguing with Miles. Yeah, yeah, they're certainly having problems. It's this early in it's this early and stuff. Keiko is not quite happy. She's come along to support Miles. It's 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 an interesting dynamic. It's like it has to be explored that she basically has put her career on hold, and Odo's infamous ramp on coupling is like he prefers not to. Like the whole thing of compromising and how the woman gets like the better end of the deal. Like Odo enjoys the bachelor's life. I can relate, but again, I have a younger brother who has a wife and everything, and it's like they do find a way to like even things out of what one wants to do and so forth. But by and large, she wins. She wins most of the time. Meanwhile, Dax and Cisco come down from the Hollow Suites. Unfortunately, the Hollow Suite is still in occupation, is still in use. Quark is also simping for Dax. But everyone, the Quark is right that they were that Cisco and Dax were old friends, and like he knows for a fact on that. And of course, Cisco Odo recognizing the dude in question that's going to frame him in this episode. But there is the whole thing between Cisco and Dax, and more so Dax at this point in the series, where everyone is like attracted to her because hey, she is hot as hell. And Cisco talking about his father and like he always cooking that they have supper every day, like he would try new recipes. But you don't want to eat steamed things every day. So saute, boiled, fried, fricasseed. Like steamed potatoes, terrible. Yeah, there is a big awkwardness here because it kind of works out that Jadzio is trying to move on. Which is this happens to trills. It's like that the friendship survive from one species. It's like things move on from one to another. But if you think about it, the conversation here is quite relevant when you're talking about transgender people when they change, and not just them, but in general, when you take into account that Quark is at the time when he was a she, they were fast friends, and he's obviously now different, and there's an adjustment period. But allow yourself to have the time to feel comfortable with them. It's a wonderful message, and so far ahead of its time. It's it's quite profound in that and a great example of that is much later in the series. No, I think season 2 or 3. I forget which one it is. Where Kor, Kang, and Koloth show up. Kor introduces, just immediately accepts Jadzia as being Curzon, and there's a meme that says like, "Be like Kor" when it comes to dealing with people who have transitioned from one to another, especially if you have known them before. Like, yeah, Keiko has nothing to do. They they can put Keiko and they could use a botanist, but like Keiko can do stuff as a botanist on the station. She wasn't really an officer anyway. Wait a second. No. Wait, did Keiko hold a rank when she was on the Enterprise? Even though she had like a less than form. No, that's. Did she hold a rank of any kind? Because if she was enlisted in Starfleet as a botanist, and she's saying that she's complaining that she's not going to be on any ship, the what her rank would have been? Because would you say she would have held a rank higher than O'Brien, or was she also a non-commissioned officer? I don't think anybody ever brought that up. Hey, it's Nog, and he's trying to make friends. And I would say this right now: the introduction of Nog and Jake is actually quite wonderful here. They're the only people the same age technically, but Aaron Eisenberg, the person who plays Nog, is like 10 to 15 or 20 years older than Jake, but because it's like there is a substantial age difference, but Nog plays a teenager, but Aaron Eisenberg plays the young teenager quite well. And Odo giving Cisco the big details over the Udon that he went to prison to murder, that Odo sent him to prison, and that the dude is now on that he's now out and about because he killed a Cardassian. Like Odo does not want him there, but this is the thing that Odo needs to adjust to. That he can't quite be the sheriff. But Odo says here that the laws change depending on who the hell's in charge. Fuck knows we're dealing with that in the United States these days with the fucking Mango Mussolino. Changing the rules every single damn day to fit his needs and wants. And every fucking MAGA Republican on top of that following suit. Jerks. But like, oh yes, you gotta but laws change or interpreted differently depending on who's in charge, but justice remains the same. But again, we're talking frontier justice. And the clone is getting a nice massage. And it's like, ooh, I could use a massage too. And look at she has web fingers on top of everything else too. And you look at like all the makeup and stuff, all the stuff that like DS9 goes above and beyond by having like all sorts of aliens, all sorts of details and features that you certainly will not see on any of the other Trek series, at least not until Star Trek Discovery, really. Granting on Bolites, they're fleas. Dax walking in the background. Oh, wonderful transitions because Jake and Nog are preparing a prank, but you see Dax walking into the shot, and and then the intercept with Bashir. And Dax trying to let Bashir down normally. And that when she called him a nuisance, it's like he took offense. But he's trying so damn hard. And again, Bashir was no one's favorite character for years. It really is until like seasons 3, 4, and especially 5, where Bashir gets like actual substance to his character on a continuous basis. But all of the individual shots here, everything looking like it's almost uncut for a large stretch. In this scene is a trademark of Deep Space Nine, where you can like pan the camera from one conversation to another without the need to do like a hard cut from camera 1 to camera 2. You can have the camera moving from time to time because The promenade set is freaking huge. And these people are changing color. My question is, that people should be seeing them, but no one's worried about it. It's like a weird case of fleas and stuff. And everybody's gonna look at it. Yeah, let's just stay away from these two people. Move away from them. And Jake and Nog are in trouble. Security, seeing them laughing. Anyone who's ever had run into mall security for one reason or another, it's kind of weird. Keiko observing on this is like, I would need to become a teacher, like to provide some structure so kids like Jake and Nog do not get into trouble. There's too much things that they don't become a duck rat. Yet, and guess what? Yes, that is a Mass Effect reference for those who know and don't know. And it's a Mass Effect 2 reference, more accurately. Also, I need to comment on Odo's voice. It's a lot more higher pitched and not as gravelly in this scene as one would assume. I'm assuming it's because of how it's echoing off of the holosuite set walls. And speaking of echoing, there's a bit of a echoing effect on Cisco's dialogue in this scene. Because again, Avery Brooks has that powerful voice. Damn Vulcan science vessels, they're always causing trouble. Especially if you see how they look with that big ring around them, and it's like it's kind of Vulcan vessels have kind of a weird design to them. Well, yeah, Keiko has a point. Why not? Why not? Why wouldn't the freedom that the kids have on the station be like the same on the Enterprise? And that she mentioned that she wants to have a school, and O'Brien giving her that look, like, really? Oh, he operates a transit aid center. It's like, okay, for the people moving from in and out, but it's kind of interesting. He actually this dude who I don't think appears in any other episodes actually has a function on the station. But what this dude presents here is that the mindset of the Bajorans so early in this, so early in the season, in the series of Deep Space Nine, where the Bajorans are kind of are on edge. That like if anything happens to a Bajoran, like they are going to essentially be the cause a riot, or to some degree. This was Zebo Don's quarters. Yeah, yeah, two beds. It's a wonderful. The wonderful thing about Deep Space Nine is that they will build sets, and all the sets damn look good. And it's like even the one and done sets, the Next Generation and Voyager were very static. It was on Stardate 46384. And he arrives on Deep Space Nine. Oh, he went to Transit Aid, and then he went to see Odo. That he intentionally, Ibudan intentionally went to see Odo, like to make sure that he was seen. So it's kind of interesting. And Cisco is kind of mad at Jake here. And yeah, but there are only 1,200 kids on the station? 8 to 16. Yeah, you're gonna ask a kid if he missed going to school. Yeah, the answer is instantly no. But homeschooling and stuff like that, we can understand that. Is that like just gotta have some limited structure for the schools and stuff to bring in the individual lessons. And again, the the um the whole thing with Keiko becoming the teacher, but with having a range of kids, means that you have like a general lesson plan. How, however, the they will have individual lessons for them, for like things for them to study and so forth. It's a lot of work, mind you, but that's how things were done in the frontier days in the United States. It's an interesting little dynamic there. It's like you have to have like the individual lessons for each individual kid. You also got to be respectful of the cultures, especially on Deep Space Nine, because you got the Ferengi, they have the way they do things, the Bajorans, the way they do things, and any other aliens who are permanent residents of the stations. So essentially, what Keiko becomes is a school marm. She is having to do everything for all the kids. Again, it's a lot of work for her to take on top of raising Molly and putting up with O'Brien's bullshit. And of course, as I was discussing all that, they were talking about, oh, they found only Ibudan's DNA in the Hollow Suite. There was no one else in the room with him. The only person who could get in and out without beaming in or anything would be a shapeshifter. Again, Odo's voice is again very all over the place here, depending on drawn out on shots from a distance. It's almost it's almost as if it's was, I'm gonna say overdubbed, but I can't quite tell. Disco and Odo returns to his liquid form every what, 15 some odd hours, and then he knows at least 500 people that would want to seek revenge on him. Can't blame him. He is certainly the sheriff. And it's interesting that Odo would be asking to see, like, hey, can you send the Bashir over, make him useful, check out the Ibudan's quarters? And hey, it's Rom. But again, he does not have that voice. What do you mean, brother? Like he developed a voice where it kind of speaks with a tone like this, but it happens much later in this. It happens gradually over the series. It's like, I'm looking forward to inheriting the bar from you, bro. To inheriting the bar from you, brother. It's like, but in the meantime, I gotta go see Lita, and that's Leeta, Lita, not Lita. That's a whole thing later on. But the but at this point in time, Ram is operating as like a casino pit boss. It 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 it, it it's it's again, it's a it's a far cry from how Ram would be later on. But Keiko is Keiko is trying laying it on thick that hey, he could, that Nog could learn all the stuff he could use in business. She's pestering to the point that say, you know what, fine, I'll think about it. This shoe, I'm trying to do things. But again, the transition to the dude from the transit aid station, to talk about it. And he's raising a point there. It's like, again, the suspiciousness and the concerns of the Bajorans. It's like, hey, if Odo was running security under if Odo was running security for the Kardashians and he's still in that position, running things for the Federation, it's like it's an interesting dynamic there. Oh, yeah. Quark may be Odo's enemy on sorts, but there is, you can tell early on there is a begrudging respect there, because this episode, after the opening credits, has them hanging out and talking to one another as if they're friends and they're gossiping. And the dude in the hood is Ibudan. I already know it. It's like all fans, so it's like not even going to climb it there because I know it's the whole thing with the clone and stuff. It gets revealed. They find the DNA, and it's like stuff going to be grown it grows in a petri dish, then into a fish tank, and then into a bigger fish tank. But but at the same time, we see Bashir finding it, the extra DNA. But the DNA that he's finding is in Ibudan's quarters, not in the Hollow Suite. He's going throughout. He's checking every inch of the room, and what he finds, I believe, yeah, he finds it in this random porthole. Weird thing is, if that's supposed to be a porthole to look out into space, it doesn't look like it opens. And the Bajorans having concerns, bringing their concerns about Odo to Cisco, they're up on ops, and Kira is coming to Odo's defense. It's like it's because Kira has a bit of a conflict of interest here because Odo is her friend. And I believe there is some episodes that goes back in this in discussing that to a degree, like why they have such a friendship, and why he has her respect. Like, yeah, Miss Cisco was right that he has a right to complain. He doesn't really have a choice. You can't have the prime suspect of a murder in charge of investigating the murder. You can't have it. But it, but at least Cisco's gonna be like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to inform him. Don't really have a choice on it, and Odo's going to take it quite well. What the hell is a Madam Reclamation Unit? What is that? I'm sure if it was Voyager, there'll be like 10 pages of techno babble that could explain it. All that DNA. Yes, translate. Let's tackle techno babble. At least they're breaking down like the full on investigation. Deep Space Nine, CSI. What does it mean, Doctor? Yes, you can grow something from this. You can make something bigger and larger and more complex. It's again, at least it's giving Bashir something to focus on and shows that okay, if he has a puzzle or something, at least this is showing that Bashir is competent despite uh his rather bland how one dimensional he is. And Odo has a look that like he knows this was coming. They like have a seat. Odo credit to Renee Aubergenois in terms of providing the emote. Like, yeah, you know it's coming. Like, and he wants to know who's taking over. Kira and Dax are in charge of it. And he's like, he has to accept it. Like, Cisco believes him. But Odo raises the question, how can it be true? You don't really know him. Like, you don't know if he doesn't have any reasons. Like, he wouldn't want to kill Ibudan. Even though Odo's whole thing was to, like, throw him off the station within 26 hours. But when you think about it, Deep Space Nine, Bajor has a 26-hour day. The further you away from a star, the longer potentially the days are in terms of the orbit. Like Mars has like Earth has a 24-hour day. I think Mars has a 28, 30-hour long day, and that's president real life, science from what's discovered. And like every and Morn is in the background. Morn, and but you saw all the Bajorans like gossiping in the shot, and you are, and then the security office ransacked, and in the background it has like shifter written, and like in a way in the background on the walls in a way that is quite raises concerns considering how easily they could have drawn that those parallels are to real life things that's happened. That Quark is not in charge. Excuse me, Odo is no longer in charge, but Quark was willing to say, like, hey, you know what? I can find out uh who did this for you. At least he offered it. But again, this is a wonderful scene of establishing more of the relationship between Odo and Quark. Quark admits that he's a bit of a Quark is admitting that he's a rapscallion. But the one of the things I think that at least Quark shows up and says like, you know what, I can find out who did this if you want me to. And Odo's saying like his asking, hey, could you use a shapeshifter? And Quark's like, you had me going, and they're sharing a laugh here. Because again, this is the dynamic that Odo and Quark have. They've known each other for years up to this point. And Quark has been asking about Ibudan. Now, Ibudan had no enemies there, but at least Quark is looking into it. And that Ibudan hung around with other Bajorans and stuff. So, but at the very least, again, Quark has Odo's back. Again, they may bicker and stuff, but it's kind of like that husband. I don't want to say husband wife dynamic, but it's that, and it's more than Spock and McCoy, because McCoy is just outright racist towards Spock at times. It's the cat and mouse game. It's more like the Quark and Odo have more of a Tom and Jerry relationship. One is always chasing the other at any. Well, it's mainly Odo chasing Quark most of the time, not the other way around. But still, the point is made. And now Bashir and Cisco are talking about Dax. I forget. Is this number 6 for Jedzia? Like the evolving the fantastical thing about the Trill is like how much of their personality remains from one to the other, and we don't really get that big dynamic until Ezri. That we see where Ezri as an unprepared Trill inheriting the symbiote is like trying, but where she's overwhelmed trying to see what can she do from the natural instincts that she inherited from the previous host, not just Curzon, not just Adzia, but other ones like, say, Emily. I think who was a gymnast on top of everything else. And then there's a host that they don't talk about because that one was a murderer. Because I believe there's an episode in season 1 or season 2 where they actually highlight the individual hosts. What is Bearfish Juro Counterpunch? What is that? Rock'em Sock'em Robots? Born! Odo's just want to sit down at the bar and everyone walks away. And Morn is like, well, shoot, I guess I better go too. Again, it's an interesting topic there. And all the school desks being brought in. Where did they get those desks from, though? But a wonderful way of setting up the classroom. Like, you know what? It's O'Brien probably using an industrial fabricator, an industrial replicator. And Molly wants to go to school. And you know what's actually kind of cute? That it's Hana Hate who plays Molly. She debuts in the TNG episode of Rascal. She is Molly all the way through to season 7 of Deep Space Nine. So she basically we actually do see Molly grow up. They actually, unlike other shows that swap out the kid actors, especially if they're young in age, not in this case. And a school bell. And remember what I was roughly referring to in terms of like the old frontier school marms? That okay, Keiko being out, she wants to see Keiko out on the promenade, ringing this bell to summon all the kids. But here it is. Molly's out there in the classroom, and then right outside him, people yelling "murderer." Again, the early day Bajorians, right coming out the occupation, they're distrusting of everyone that had any association with the Cardassians, and so the mob rules. Morn, why are you there? Well, Morn just goes along with the crowd anyway. And it brings security down. Federation security, more than less. Yep. Yep. O'Brien is like Bashir just sticking his head outside. Like, really, really, Morn, why are you with the mob? Because this is not really saying a lot about Morn, but it's like, really, Morn, why are you going around? Does Morn just cave into peer pressure right away? And one thing this year, there was a shot of Bashir looking out into the out of the infirmary, seeing all the chaos happening, with security making a way to block the front of Odo's office. Get the shapeshifter, murderer, shapeshifter, murder shifter. It, it's funny. O'Brien does say it's a few minutes ago, and the crowd has gotten larger because there was a commercial cut there. So technically, what this is establishing, it takes about 2 to 4 minutes to get down from Ops all the way down to the promenade. And there is Evil Don in his hood observing things. Oh, Jazia's in this shot. Yes, we know it's definitely humanoid. Yeah, and Bashir has the epiphany. Oh, shoot. Okay, that was weird. That was very weird. Yep. That was kind of weird. It's like the DVD just stopped playing. So like, get security together. The mob needs to be dispersed. Break out the phasers. But wait, Odo does not allow phasers or weapons on the promenade. Break out the stun rod batons from what the hell was it? Demolition Man. That's what you need there. Just tap them on the top of the heads. And it's a big blob. Seriously, how big of fish tanks and stuff does Bashir have in the infirmary? Like, evil dies tonight! Oh, okay, the phasers are being passed out. More security! More security, Goombas! And Cisco's in front of the doors. And it's interesting that the Bajorans are this head to head with Cisco because his whole role as emissary is not really accepted or at least broadly known fully yet. Like, how do you get a rope around the head of a Nake's shapeshifter? Because Cisco, excuse me, Odo could do like this Kardashian neck trick, rope escape. And a brawl is breaking out, and Cisco's broke out the phaser. He was like, "We got the phasers." Why didn't go stun? But they don't want justice. They just want they just want to cause some rage. Cisco giving that big preaching. This is like, yeah, that you will be ashamed. And you think about it, some of them are enlisted into the Bajoran militia. Yeah, it's not gonna be none of that mob rules justice. Ibudan was not murdered, and it's like, break up the mob, move along, move along. Mourn, we're going to have a serious talk about you being a part of the mob later. He was making a clone of himself. And that darn thing grew quick because within the span of a few minutes, because it was like a big blob mass, and now it's grown even like to where it's like it's nearly 6 feet long. But Bashir is quite smart enough to know what to look for. Yeah, so where is Ibudan? If he's not dead, where is he? And Odo knows where to find him. Go back to the Doc Bajoran ship and back to Ibudan's quarters. Turn on the lights. That chair wasn't there before. Again, the full on screen morphing. We really don't see a lot of it go as more as the Deep Space Nine goes along, but they've done it like in like the first few episodes of Odo morphing from one thing to another. Lamone-esque. What's his name? He did not arrive. Yeah, like how did you get on the station? Like, where were you? Ibudan's bluff here is not really falling in. Oh, there was there was a Bajoran dissident. So Quark's bit of knowledge comes into play here. Can't kill your own clone, dude. But Quark revealing the fact that Ibudan's hung out with only other Bajoran dissidents when he was in prison is is a nice turnaround for like Quark. 7 minutes after 9 a.m. and Cisco has to drag his kid to school. And oh, here comes Rom dragging Nog to school. Yeah, don't sit next to the human boy. Nope, move over here. All the way down at the other end of the row. Rom at least was convinced. He's like, okay, you know what? This might be a good idea. And look, more kids wandering in. Yeah, try to be in time. School starts at 9 a.m., which is about an hour and a half later than when school started for me. It was like 7:30 a.m. No, 8 a.m. When I was in school, school never started at 9 a.m. It was way earlier than that. But it's a nice close out there, a nice, closing in on the subplot there. Kind of wondering why the DVD stopped playing. Do I have to worry about issues with the DVD with these DVDs the same way I did with the Daria box set? I hope not. Still, as an episode that does a lot to what you get from this episode, and obviously I was jumping all over the place as different things as inspired from the individual topics that presented itself. This is an episode that does a great job spotlighting a lot of the issues with the early Bajorans. And I don't want not issues per se, but more of like they're like how on edge they are in the early going. That they would have that there would be a major issue concerning them. Um, like okay, something happens to one Bajoran, and you have one probable, you have a major suspect, and what do you do about that? And it's like okay, and all the Bajorans know that Odo was the in charge of security with the Kardashians, and it's like oh Odo sent this guy to prison while the Cardassians were in charge. This guy comes off. He talks to the guy at the transit aid station. Says like he's kind of worried about Odo because something he feels like something would happen to him. Like the seeds were planted in terms of laying everything was being laid out in a way that would come back around, like to build up all the tension because of like how quick the anger at this point in the series that the Bajorans are. I mean, a lot of this comes to a head at the beginning of season two with the with the season 2 3-parter. The whole was like, yes, it's the Bajorans. You got Bajorans who again Kira's attitude in the first episode in the emissary is like if Kira is not fully happy with the Bajorans being there, and it's like you had uh Tanos, who was like expressing that, and that Kira was like, yeah, she's not exactly happy, but considering the wormhole and everything, you have all these moving pieces. It's like, yeah, there is a lot of Bajorans at this point who are not going to be happy. They are going to be on edge. They are going to snap. And now it's not the majority, but there's enough of them. The whole Bajor for Bajorans thing. It is a staple of early DS9. Jake and Nog becoming fast friends, playing pranks, getting in trouble. It is something that is established with their characters, but as it's 9 a.m., there are, but it becomes like the growth more so for Nog than anything else here. Because if you go back and look, especially if you're looking back with hindsight in mind, if you know where Nog goes with his character arc, then he would become he would enroll in Starfleet Academy. He would get a field promotion to ensign during the Dominion War. In that, depending on what version of canon and stuff you want to go with, that he would move up the ranks and become a captain. And a lot of and like in Star Trek Online, uh, Nog is the captain of the Chimera in Star Trek Online. Nog in a lot of other stuff is working and goes is in the Starfleet Corps of Engineers, and the person that is almost in charge of that for a large stretch of time is Montgomery Scott, who ends up in the 21st century because of the events and relics and stuff like that. So Nog, when you know where Nog goes beyond just the realms of the show, he's like you look back and the very beginning and Keiko pressuring Rom, not say pressuring, but it's like going out of the way, like hey, like she could teach Nog things that he could use as a good Ferengi, like okay, how to negotiate, having the knowledge and stuff that potentially other Ferengi might not even have. Like at Nog's age, because everything is so business oriented, profit heavy, and things uh along those lines. That's like like he's saying that Nog could get a leg up on that. That he could potentially be in a much better place to be a quote unquote good Ferengi than and it kind of occurs to Rom. But it's like then it concern is like he that okay, Nog was not going to listen to Keiko because he's human, because she's human and she's female, and anyone who knows about the Ferengi attitude towards females, which thankfully is not really relevant or as much of a trope in Deep Space Nine as it was in the Next Generation. when you when you consider those individual factors. Uh, Thinking, what else can we talk about or revisit here? Bashir. Bashir scenes with like one-on-one scenes with Dax. The two scenes he has with Dax, the one with has that he has with Cisco. Um, it really does him no favors. Credit to Alexander Siddig at this stage is like working with what he's got. Is like trying to craft a personality that is for Bashir, who is extremely one-dimensional. Like, no, well, scratch that. Two-dimensional, because Bashir has two modes. He is a skirt chaser, or he is a very bright and ingenious young doctor. As this episode takes it in terms of the latter. But there are a number of episodes early on in Deep Space Nine where he is actually pursuing other romantic interests. Granted, it's like he is like the only character that could really be done with that could that could actually uh be the trope with of being the skirt chaser, but it doesn't quite, because think about it, you got the Cisco being the single father, the widower, and being a single father. Kira, is like the resistance firebrandy types. Odo's the sheriff of it. O'Brien's a family man. Quark is a rapscallion, a scoundrel. And Dax has like at bare minimum 6, 7 lifetimes worth of memories and stuff. Like there's nothing that Dax has. There's very little that Dax has not done in their combined lifetimes. So Bashir is kind of like the Bashir's kind of like the odd one out in terms of not really having like the complex personality. Um, but at the very least, this episode at least gets out in front and tries to like have Dax trying to like let him down as gently as possible, but early Bashir has a very thick head in being sociably uh, well socially awkward in the way of at least dealing with women. Then and then we had to talk about Morn. Morn, why? Like the scene in the at Quarks where all the other Bajorians like move away from Odo, and then Bourne turns on his bar stool and sees what everything that's happened, sees what's happening, and then he wanders off. And then when Odo goes to his office, the mob forms. Morn is in the mob. It's like, Morn, why, dude? What were you thinking, Morn? Why would you join the mob? It's like, don't you know nothing good happens when you join a mob that is going to cause a ruckus? Yeah, but Morn is the type of dude that this goes along with. This goes with the flows. Like he caves to peer pressure, is what I'm saying. Again, I'm that type of Star Trek fan. It's like we can joke about that here because Morn does not say a single fucking thing over the course of the series. You hear about him talking. That's a gag with Morn that appears in Star Trek Online, where if you go and talk with him at Quarks, is like an actual cutscene that indicates several hours later because Warren can just talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. Like once you get him going, he never shuts up. Oh boy. So on that note, we're gonna wrap this up here. Hopefully I've given y'all a lot of talk about here over the course of the again, it's like I can talk Star Trek all day long and having the episodes and going through the episodes of Deep Space Nine and just pulling stuff from memory and um like it's a one I think I joked at the very beginning. I can have a conversation with myself while talking with y'all because yeah, and I'm kind of curious if you make it to the ends of these is like what the comments section will be other than it's just like why are you talking, show the footage and the audio, make this shorter and stuff like that. I can already imagine that because again behind the scenes stuff by the time at the time I'm recording this it's like 6 days before episode 1 where the emissary premieres on the YouTube channel. So it's like yeah, so I'm like retroactively doing this. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe if you're so inclined. If you want to toss a few bucks to help keep the lights on and stuff, there's a donation link in the descriptions. And with that said, tighten your friendship bracelets, stay safe, have a good one. We'll see you next time.